Welcome to today's Crosspoint Devotion. Today I want to let you think about seeing the face of God. Have you ever seen God's face? The reality is most of us can honestly say we've never seen the face of God other than when we studied the life of Jesus in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. When we dive into the Gospels and we get to study the life of Jesus and how He ministered to people and how He touched lives and how He taught the people, that's about as close as we can get to seeing the face of God because He was Emmanuel, which means God with us. But that led me to think a little bit about a passage I ran across recently in Genesis chapter 33. When you get to Genesis 33, there's this ongoing storyline of two brothers. They're actually twins called Esau and Jacob. You probably have heard of them. In fact, most of the time when we refer to the two brothers, we put Jacob first, even though he was the second born of the two twins, and then we refer to them as Jacob and Esau. Now, there's a theological reason why we put Jacob first. It was through the line of Jacob that God was going to fulfill His plan of bringing the Messiah that was going to lead us to Jesus. But when we study the story, what we find is Jacob is a central character in the story because he's known as a deceiver. All of his life he lived up to his name, which meant supplanter or deceiver, and he was constantly trying to one-up other people who were around him, including his brother Esau. You will probably remember the story well. Jacob stole his brother's birthright for a bowl of stew, and then he stole his father's blessing with a plate of wild game supper one night with the help of his mother. Because of those two circumstances, Jacob stealing his brother's birthright and his brother's blessing, Jacob eventually had to leave town and leave where the family was living because Esau made a threat that he was going to kill his brother. Now, God used that event when He sent Jacob away to change his heart and to change his life and even change his name. Eventually, Jacob had a wrestling match with God one night as he was coming back home, and God said, "You're no longer going to be known as the deceiver, but you're going to be known as one who has been in a fight with God and with man, and you've overcome. And so from this point forward, your name's not going to be Jacob, but it's going to be Israel." Well, that was a turning point in Jacob's life. When he got ready to leave that night of wrestling with God, he knew that his next big event in life was to face his brother Esau, to try to reconcile with him because of all the past problems that they'd experienced together. So Jacob did something interesting in the chapters right before chapter 33 in the book of Genesis. He set apart all of his animals and his flocks and herds in little groupings, and he sent them ahead so that those animals and flocks and groupings of sheep and goats would all appear to his brother Esau before he arrived. Basically, he was trying to appease his brother. He was trying to get him ready to perhaps be reconciled to his brother. And when the two men finally came face to face and Esau asked Jacob, "Why did you send all these animals? Why did you send all these flocks? Why did you send the sheep and the goats?" Jacob said, "I wanted to make sure that when we saw each other, you knew I was seeking your forgiveness." But listen to what Jacob says to his brother Esau as they began to meet and discuss the reconciliation. But Jacob said, "No, please, if I have found favor with you, take this gift from me, for indeed I have seen your face, and it is like seeing God's face since you have accepted me." Esau said to Jacob, "I don't need your animals. I don't need your flocks. I don't need your herds. I don't need your sheep and your goats. I don't need any of that. I've got my own." And Jacob said, "No, would you receive these gifts from me as an extension of my offer of reconciliation? And if you'll receive these gifts, and you'll receive me, it'll be like I'm seeing the face of God." Anytime you and I are willing to forgive and be reconciled, when we are in that moment, we're seeing the face of God. Why? Because that's who God is. The God that we serve knew that we were estranged from Him because of sin, and He decided to send His Son Jesus so that Jesus could die on the cross, be buried, and then on the third day be resurrected. Why? So that He could be reconciled with us. The God that we serve is all in the business of reconciliation. That's why He sent Jesus. So every time we forgive and are reconciled to those with whom we are broken, It's like looking into the face of God. I want to encourage you to think about in your own life right now, are there some people with whom you have broken relationships? Let me encourage you to extend forgiveness and receive forgiveness and be reconciled so that you can see the face of God and so can the other person. Well, I hope that'll encourage you and challenge you this week, and we hope you'll come back and join us for the next Crosspoint Devotion.